Hi, dear students. We are now in the last module of the course, and the last module is about ethics. And ethics is about the theory of right or wrong. I have here an introduction that ethics belongs to axiology, and axiology is the study of values. Ethics is about values of right or wrong. So our concern is to understand how we should live our life and in our choices in making moral decision. And so our goal in this course is to understand what ethics is all about, what are the different ethical positions, and the ethical theories available. Okay, so you have your textbook, and your textbook will be about moral truths. And if you try to look at the chapters of your textbook, it belongs to chapter 8 and chapter 9. And you'll see I have a new edition of my textbook. So you have chapter 8 and chapter 9 as the same chapters in the new textbook. The paging, um, okay, maybe there are changes in the paging. So try to make adjustments on the paging of your textbook. I prepared the notes using this textbook, and I have developed the PowerPoint that could easily explain the different ethical positions in our study. Okay. Now, your quiz guide can have a master reviewer based on this PowerPoint, and that is one that I would open today as we go through the assignments. Now, there are 4 common assignments in this unit. You have the first one, the discussion, and then the engagement, which is the journal with the philosophers or the ethical theories. And you have quiz 5, and then the extra credit essay. All right. So let's begin with the discussion. The discussion is about how do you make decision? Is it based on the good thing or is it based on the right thing? So try to examine your way of judging. Try to examine how you make decisions in life, because most of the time we choose the good rather than the right thing. Is the good and the right thing the same? So the first paragraph is about how do you decide in morality? Do you judge based on what is good and what is in the good that we really love? And if the good is being chosen, ask yourself if it is the right thing as well. Or shall you judge based on the right thing, even it's not good for you? Okay? Or it doesn't please you, but it's the right thing. So support your answer in developing this paragraph. The second paragraph is to evaluate how one can achieve or can know the good and the right thing. And you have model of Plato here and the model of Aristotle. Who do you think has the better model? Plato's model is knowing the good or knowing the right thing. For one to do the good or to do the right thing is knowing enough. What if I will ask Alexa or Siri, Siri, what is honesty? Then Siri will answer me what honesty is. Now, will that make me an honest person? So, Aristotle had a different model, and he would emphasize now being good person first. And what does this imply? It's not enough to know honesty, but to be honest himself or oneself. So being honest is better than knowing honesty. Now, how do we become an honest person? Of course, he emphasized habituation, which is a practice of honesty every single day or every moment. And so it is like part of this understanding is the building up of character of a good person. How do we build that character? Okay, and so that perhaps your point in your paragraphs that you can develop. First, how will you decide based on the good or based on the right thing? And which model do you prefer? Plato's model of knowing the good or Aristotle's model of being good by habituating the good? Which way is best that can achieve the right thing and the good thing? All right, so there's the first assignment. The second assignment that you need to develop would be engagement with the theorists, ethical theorists. So there are guide questions here, and there are 5 of these theories that you need to develop. The first one, ethical egoism. The other one, utilitarianism. There's natural law, duty ethics, and virtue ethics. So every theory here is a question. So I would like you to develop these theories as well. So the first theory is ethical egoism and utilitarianism. This belongs to consequentialist ethics. Now, you need to understand based on your PowerPoint. So I will open the PowerPoint that can help you, and that will be your resources in developing this or your textbook. So this one, okay, your PowerPoint. So let's understand, uh, let's look at the outline in the PowerPoint first, okay, so that you will know where to find your answers, okay. So the first part of this PowerPoint is about ethics in general. So you have here the definition of ethics, and I would like you to look at this to prepare for this for your quiz. That ethics is a branch of philosophy, which is axiology, that studies the values of right or wrong. Okay? And that action has motives, that action has what? Consequences. Okay? And there is also an etymological meaning of ethics from the root words ethos, from the Latin word morales. And both of these terms had similar meaning, like habit or custom. Habit seems like very personal, developed, acquired character. Custom is something that a group of people develop a long time that becomes part of culture. Okay, but both definitions here from the etymology had one or similar meaning, which is habitual and customary. This kind of understanding could be very relative. That means like ethics is understood in a very relativist point of view. And what does it mean by relativism? As if like it's something personal and it's against being universal or away from universal, or it is cultural, which is away also from the universality. Now, we need to move forward from being ethics to a moral philosophy, because moral philosophy emphasizes what? Raw reason, which is the most universal. We investigate the guidelines of right or wrong in the light of reason, and we try to live according to the universal uh, principles that reason had discovered in history. And it's not created but discovered. So this is what we shall focus in this course as we go through Unit 5. There is one comment of Aristotle here about ethics, that to be moral is the highest activity of the human person, which means moral activities as human par excellence. So being rational, we are expected to be moral. Aristotle argues that the only way to achieve morality or to be a being of the good is through habituation by repeated practice. It's like habit forming. It's like the statement here, a man becomes just by performing just actions. If we repeat just actions, then we become a just person. So the next point here would be the divisions of ethics. There are two parts. You have the theoretical, which studies the why of ethics, why we should act in certain way. It is about theories and systems that would explain why we should act something. This is the focus of our course, by the way. Most classroom study about ethics is theoretical ethics. That's why we study the theories. There are many types of theoretical ethics. The emotivist theory, which deals with the understanding that morality is just a matter of feelings. Okay, so feelings become like the standard of right or wrong. We have relativist view, the second one. Okay, and the last one is the universalist view. So the relativist view is that accepting only something, morality is something personal or something cultural. There is no such thing as a universal norm. Okay, there is no such thing as a moral standard for everybody. But universalist view, this is what we try to understand, the morality that philosophers have discovered in the past, which is applicable to all peoples at all times, at all places. That is what we try to understand. Now, there is normative ethics that we emphasize as guidelines in our daily actions wherever we are. We are not doing that. We are not studying this. We discover this every time we are confronted with particular situations, how to act in a way that will situate ourselves in a certain condition. Like going to the theater, for instance, there are norms that we should follow. We go to the hospital, we go to school, there are guidelines, the do's and don'ts that we need to follow. All right. Now, there are three ethical positions, and I need to mention these three. One is ethical skepticism. This happens when we are doubtful of any moral truth, or we are saying to ourselves that I cannot acquire any moral knowledge, and it's impossible for me to know right or wrong. And that kind of position is called ethical skepticism. We become skeptical or become a skeptic to what is right or wrong. And if not only skeptic, we doubt the presence of any moral norm. Ethical relativism is different. This is a kind of denial of a possible universal moral truths. If you say there is no such thing as morality for everybody, we only claim that there is morality for me or for somebody, but not for all. So right or wrong is perceived as something relative to the person or to a culture. The last one is absolutism. This is acceptance of a universal valid moral principle. What does this imply? That this the position that shows that there is such thing as right or wrong, and so this right or wrong must be observed everywhere by anyone, no exemptions. So this is an absolutist view, and so this must be universal, this must be valid. So I cannot say morality is only good for you and good for me, but not for everybody. No, that's not the case. In absolutism, you have to say that there is morality that is applicable for all. An example of this, that lying can always be wrong, and this is always applicable for everybody to follow, that you cannot lie. Lying is wrong all the time. Even you have a good reason, okay? Even you have a good purpose. Stealing, even with a good purpose, is still stealing. That is what an absolutist view all about. Okay. There are theories now that we need to handle, and I think your ethical engagement in this assignment can be helped by this theory. So try to work on consequentialist ethics. There is natural law or duty ethics here. There is natural law by Aquinas, and there is arithological ethical theory. So the first theory that we need to learn is egoism and utilitarianism. So what's the question about? So if I will go back to the guide question, okay, and the guide question, I have to open the guide. Okay, describe ethical egoism. This is what is asked here. And what is its justification? Describe how human nature influenced the mind of the ethical egoist, and then compare Hobbes and Ayn Rand's resolution to conflict. So you have 1 and 2. So if you go to your PowerPoints, I'll show you the answer for number 1. So the answer for number 1 is found in box 17. So there is box 17. You can answer that there. And then number 2 is in box 18 and 19. Okay, so you have 2 boxes there. You have Hobbes and then Ayn Rand. All right, so try to understand what is egoism, ethical egoism. It says there is a theory. It says actions, decisions, and rule is right if it promotes the self-interest. So what does this theory is saying? That right or wrong is judged on the consequences of the act. If the consequences of the act or decision or rule promotes my self-interest, then that is a good act because it supplies the ethical egoistic principle. Now, it is grounded on the understanding from Thomas Hobbes' psychological egoism that every human being is by nature selfish. And so it's so natural to be selfish in this kind of theory. That's why many people could say, oh, I like this theory because it fits to my personality because I am myself selfish. Now, if everyone is selfish, everybody will experience this conflict of interest. So the question next is that what will be the resolution of conflict according to Hobbes and Ayn Rand? Hobbes would say that we need to surrender ourselves to the centralized government because our understanding that someone must have mediate the um, the acquisition of that self-interest, because without the government we just kill each other, and so life becomes so short, nasty, and we come in conflict with one another. We become self-protective, and so in protecting ourselves we will destroy some people on the process. Ayn Rand did not agree with that. Ayn Rand would say that our understanding of conflict can be answered by a libertarian society. Just emphasize total freedom. Just give everybody total liberty to mediate each other's interest, that all our selfishness will bring down someone's selfishness. In that way, who regulates the pride and the selfishness of others? Of course, our own individual freedom as well. Just like I am free to throw anything in principle, but I have to ask myself before I throw something, is there anyone around? Because I cannot just throw anything anywhere if somebody is around, because that somebody has freedom as well, and he wants to preserve his own freedom. So given that situation of freedom, that person there that can be hit in my throwing can sue me on the process, say, oh, that's the end of your freedom because you violate my freedom. So I can only throw anything at anywhere, assuming that there's nobody there, and you are the only free person that is available in that area. But if I found that there are other people involved in the situation, then I have to limit my own freedom. So who controls our self-interest? Is the self-interest of other people. Okay, that's how Ayn Rand would look at it. Okay, what about utilitarian principle? So utilitarianism has a different model based on how the interest would be perceived. So in egoism, the interest is toward oneself. In utilitarianism, the interest is towards others. So let's look at the question for utilitarianism. So describe the meaning of utilitarianism and its justification, and what is that principle that is behind this understanding of this theory. The second one, compare act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism, and then try to make sure that what is the difference between these two, which one provides long-term happiness and which one provides short-term happiness. There's a video that I attach in the guide. Make sure you also, this is the video on utilitarianism that can answer your number 2. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. What is utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is a theory that says act, rule, or trait is right if it promotes the interest of the greatest number. So mark here. You got your actions, you got your policy norms that you need to follow, or a character that you need to pursue. They are right and good character or action if those actions could lead to the pleasure and happiness of the majority in society, the greatest happiness principle. Okay, if it doesn't promote anything good for society and for others, then that is not a good action, because in utilitarianism, the beneficiaries of your action must be the greatest number of people. Okay, where is this founded? It is founded on the principle of utility, that humans seeks pleasure and we need to avoid pain. Okay, Jeremy Bentham developed this theory in a background that assuming that human nature is the same, that everyone wants to be happy, and wants to achieve pleasure. And no wonder if you ask somebody, why do you do this? Perhaps he has a kind of answer that is perceivable, but it may not really be the ultimate answer. Like, for instance, why do you go to school? What will be your answer? Perhaps your immediate answer would be because I want to pursue a degree. So you continue to ask why do you need to pursue a degree? Because I want to get a better job. So you ask again, why do you need a better job? Because I want to earn a better income. So you ask again, why do you need a better income? Oh, so that I can buy a new house, a new car. Why do you need to buy a new house? You need to buy a new car. Now, on and on, the question will continue. Now, eventually, the person will say, oh, I want to just enjoy life. I want to be happy. I buy a house, I want to be happy. I buy a car because I want to be happy. I want to eat in the restaurant a better food because I want to be happy. So it's happiness and pleasure that we seek. And along with that seeking of pleasure, we also avoid pain. So that is what utilitarianism is. This next box is about number 2, differentiating act utilitarianism from rule utilitarianism. And if you have time, I would like you to ask you to watch the video on this portion here. There is a portion differentiating
argue
act utilitarianism versus rule utilitarianism.
And soldier is a total
Let's see if I can get through it. Let me see again. Where is it? Okay.
Bag, and Jim shouldn't have to get literal blood on his hands to try and rectify the situation. Think of his decision as now known as act utilitarianism, sometimes called classical utilitarianism. And it says that in any given situation, you should choose the action that produces the greatest good for the greatest number, period. But sometimes the act that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number can seem just wrong. For instance, suppose a surgeon has 5 patients all waiting for transplants. One needs a heart, another a lung, 2 are waiting for kidneys, and the last needs a liver. The doctor is pretty sure that these patients will all die before their names come up on the transplant list, and he just so happens to have a neighbor who has no family, total recluse, not even a very nice guy. The doctor knows that no one would miss the guy if he were to disappear, and by some miracle, the neighbor is a match for all 5 of the transplant patients. So it seems like, even though this would be a bad day for the neighbor, an act utilitarian should kill the neighbor and give his organs to the 5 patients. It's the greatest good for the greatest number. Yes, 1 innocent person dies, but 5 innocent people are saved. This might seem harsh, but remember that pain is pain regardless of who's experiencing it. So the death of the neighbor would be no worse than the death of any of those patients dying on the transplant list. In fact, it's 5 times less bad than all 5 of their deaths. So thought experiments like this one led some utilitarians to come up with another framework for their theory. This one is called rule utilitarianism. This version of the theory says that we ought to live by rules that, in general, are likely to lead to the greatest good for the greatest number. So yes, there are going to be situations where killing an innocent person will lead to the greatest good for the greatest number. But rule utilitarians want us to think long-term and on a larger scale. And overall, a whole society where innocent people are taken off the streets to be harvested for their organs is gonna have a lot less utility than one where you don't have to live in constant fear of that happening to you. So rule utilitarianism allows us to refrain from acts that might maximize utility in the short run and instead follow rules that will maximize utility for the majority of the time.
Okay, so that will help you develop that number 2 of utilitarianism, something to think about, that rule utilitarianism can bring a kind of long-range benefit or pleasure and happiness than the act utilitarianism. Okay, so the next ideas developed for number 5 and number 6. What is natural law ethics, its foundation, and then what are the issues that you can associate with this in terms of violating natural law theory. Okay, so I will develop that line. So natural law ethics, if I will open the materials, I may perhaps use, this is natural law ethics. And natural ethics is about a moral theory grounded on the eternal law of God. So there is one new basis for right or wrong here. Remember, in egoism, right or wrong is based on what is beneficial to the self, the consequence towards the self. In utilitarianism, right or wrong must be based on how it is beneficial to others. So it's the consequence as the standard for right or wrong. Now, in natural law, the standard for right or wrong is the eternal law of God. Eternal law of God is defined as the idea of God. So it's the idea of God or the mind of God or the design of God as He made the universe. So in other words, it brings out to the creator of all things, the creator of life, the creator of the universe, the creator of all that we see and experience. And let us ask ourselves, what is the design of the maker? What is the idea of the creator? So, if we speak of life, for instance, if God created my life and He owns my life, do I have the right to take this life away? Or do I have the right to take someone's life? Or do you think other people have the right to take my life away? Now, you have a problem here like abortion, which is against natural law, because we decide for the fate of the fetus inside the womb. Your suicide is killing of oneself, taking away one's life. It's also against natural law because you did not allow to decide for your life, but rather you decide to take your life away. Now, that is a violation. So euthanasia, when you decide for someone's life, like for instance the life of the dying person, even though he's dying or she's dying, we don't have the right to take someone's life. That is the point here in natural law. Okay, so develop that along that line of the argument. Okay, what about duty ethics? So again, the first question is, what is duty ethics? What's the principle behind it? And what principles of universality or maxim that you can use in order to understand the oath to be done theory. So I will go back. There is the ontological ethics earlier. I skipped for a moment. So duty ethics is a moral theory that advocates right or wrong, even you are not inclined to do it, but it is the right thing. So I have the duty to do it, even the consequence is not beneficial to me or to others, but because it's the right thing, I'm fine. I will follow. I will obey. So the basis now for this theory is not the self, is not others, is not God, but it is the duty itself. So based on duty, the demand of duty, I am asked to fulfill and satisfy what is required. Now, the face of duty nowadays would be the law, our laws. If you ask yourself who created the laws, of course you say you have the legislators, you have the policy makers. Now, what is the intention of the law? The purpose of the law is to preserve duty, to promote duty. That is the purpose. Like, we have some laws that protect children nowadays. Why? Why do we need those laws? Precisely, there are people who do not function based on duty. Okay? So therefore, they violated these different principles of duty obligation, of duty doing. Now, this kind of theory will oblige people to act according to duty. And if we surrender yourself to duty, as the categorical imperative demands, because that's the right thing no matter what. Even you don't like doing it, but it's the right thing, then you must follow it. Okay? And what is the principle of universality then? Now, understanding ontological ethics, there are principles that we need to remember. Universality. And what is it? I am never to act otherwise than to will, that my maxim should become a universal law. Now, there is a video. Now, according to this theory, you can watch a video on categorical imperative to understand the concept. So, if you open categorical imperative, there is an understanding
Act
of
only according. Let me tell you about the
universal
two most
principle
popular
here.
ones. The first formulation of the categorical imperative is often known as the universalizability principle. And Kant phrased it this way: act only according to that maxim, which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law without contradiction. Okay, Kant. Pretty wordy guy, so let's unpack what he was saying. A maxim is just a rule or principle of action, and a universal law is something that must always be done in similar situations. So, as a Kantian, before I act, I would ask myself, what's the maxim of my action? In other words, what's the general rule that stands behind the particular action I'm considering? Let's say you forgot your wallet in your dorm this morning. You don't have time to get it between classes, and you're really hungry. You notice that the student working at the snack kiosk in the Union is engrossed in a conversation, and you could easily snag a banana and be on your way. Sorry, chom. You could easily swipe that chom and be on your way. Is it okay, morally, for you to do this? Well, the particular action you are considering, taking a chom from a merchant without paying for it, is stealing. And if you approve of the maxim of stealing, which you're doing whether you admit it or not, then what you're actually doing is universalizing that action. You're saying that everyone should always steal. If you should be able to do it, then everyone should be able to do it. The thing is, this leads to a contradiction. And remember, Kant's wording specifically says that moral actions cannot bring about contradictions.
All right, so that will help you develop the principle of universality. And the last one is an understanding of virtue ethics. So define what is virtue and what is this ethical theory all about as character building. How is it differentiated with another theories? And the last one is explain the goal of this ethical theory, which is eudaimonia, and how to achieve eudaimonia. Discuss arete in relation to eudaimonia. All right, and the PowerPoint that provides you some information will have this as your theory. So you can use paragraph or box number 48 to understand number one, that this is a theory that develops the person's character so that you will achieve arete. You will achieve the human functioning, and in achieving human functioning, you will also achieve the happiness called eudaimonia. And then once arete, which is excellent in functioning, and eudaimonia is achieved, then you are in the good side of the character. So this theory promotes right or wrong by developing one's person with character, a good character for that matter. So our character is formed by an action that is repeatedly or habituated to us. Like when you repeat good actions or good habits, then it becomes a virtue. When you repeat bad habits, it becomes a vice. So what this theory is trying to promote is the good character, or what we call virtuous character. Okay, so what is a virtuous character? It is a kind of integrated totality of the moral traits and dispositions, the ways in which you habitually respond when you're confronted with moral choices. Say an honest person confronts all situations in the face of honesty. That's a good thing. Okay? A just person faces all future situations in the face of justice. Okay, and and the last one is to consider arete and eudaimonia, how they are related with one another. Arete, by the way, is the quality of a thing in relation to its purpose. Like a mouse has an arete. The mouse on my computer has an arete if it functions well. So the perfect functioning. A knife has an arete when it cuts well. My phone has an arete when it communicates well. The moment that the function is lost, then we say it loses its arete. So it's good to tell that arete is the basis for a happiness, because when you achieve arete, you also bring about eudaimonia. Like if I become virtuous, what do you think the effect to that in my wife? Of course, she will be happy. She will enjoy that. Oh, my husband is honest person, is a just person. I don't have problem with him. The same thing with the husband trying to understand the wife. He would say, "Oh, I'm happy because my wife achieved that arete already." And so it consoles my soul. There is a eudaimonia. Okay? So that is one way of understanding eudaimonia and arete. Okay. That can help here. The two kinds of virtues in the quiz. Uh, this will be discussed or will be asked as well. So virtue is a feeling or action. Practically wise person would determine it. There are different kinds of virtues. Virtues are in the mean, in the middle, from deficiency and excess. All right, so that's all our journal ideas. Develop that and post that by day 7. Let's look at our quiz materials. So I would like you to review for quiz 5. Okay. Quiz 5 is about ethical theories or the introduction to ethics. So you can develop this. The mastery review. So I would like you to survey all this. And some of the questions here are already in PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, you would see this kind. Okay, I will enlarge this a little bit. I will just zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so you have here from the PowerPoint, and this may come up in your quiz 5. Okay, so let's go over this guide here. So when you say ethics defined etymologically, it's like saying that we will find or finding the meaning of ethics based on the root words. Okay, so that's what etymological is all about. What does it mean by Aristotle saying moral activities as human par excellence? Meaning that morality is the highest expression of human action. Number 3, what is the branch of philosophy that deals with human conduct? This is called ethics. The Greek word for ethics is ethos. This is the study of the ethical theories or logical system. This is called theoretical ethics. It's the kind of ethics that gives a hands-on practical guidelines. We call this one normative ethics. The Latin word for moral philosophy is morales. Okay. A repeated practice of good actions, we call this one habituation. Which is the other term for theoretical ethics? This is also called meta-ethics. What is the other term for normative ethics? This is called applied ethics. It's the kind of morality that is created by the individual, so this is ethical subjectivism. This is a kind of morality that is created by a group of people. It's called cultural relativism. Normative ethics deals with the hands-on, answering the question how we should act in a particular situation. A morality with its expression or outburst of feelings, we call this one emotivism. This is a theory that says morality includes all humans. This is called universalist ethics. Okay, so we have answered the first part on the ethical or ethics and the ethical theories definition. Now, the next part is about teleological or consequentialist ethics, and there are theories that belong to it: egoism and utilitarianism. Ethical egoism has its roots in psychological egoism. Okay, and this psychological egoism states that man is by nature selfish. The view that the consequences are important for themselves, we call this one ethical egoism. The consequentialist theory of morality that is oriented to a particular goal, which is the highest happiness of the greatest number, we call this one utilitarianism. The central principle of utilitarianism is seek to promote pleasure and avoid what? Pain. All right. Psychological egoism states that human is by nature selfish. All right. So we finished that portion there of the identification. But all the quiz, by the way, all questions would be a multiple choice. Now, there is natural law here. There is duty ethics, and also there is virtue ethics. So try to find out what do you think is the answer for each question, because you may confront yourself with these questions. Okay, so try to develop that based on the handouts that you have. Like, for instance, duty ethics. What is the categorical imperative that formulates something? So it formulates that act which must be universalized. Okay, that would become a universal law when you apply that categorical imperative. The notion of categorical imperative is the cornerstone of Kant's ethics. Deontological ethics is an approach to ethics that discuss on what should be done, which is ought to be done without condition. That's correct. In Kant, the maxim is the principle that guides one's action. Okay? Conditional morality for Kant, except. So three of these are conditional morality. So A, B, C belongs to conditional morality. Only letter D is the correct one. Morality is based on what is ought to be done. Okay, it's an ethical behavior which is rationally based. This is unconditional and categorical. Okay. Which of the following that best fits on Kant's moral philosophy that's centered around the dignity of the human person? The answer is A. You have that in your handouts. Which of the following in Kant's morality is this foundation that a person can know with certitude? We call this one autonomy of reason. He calls this unconditional command of reason that commands ourselves to do the right thing. We call this one the categorical imperative. What is goodwill for Kant is the only good without condition. Okay, and then it is by habit that we do good. It's not by habit we do good, but it is my duty to do the good. Which one explains Kant's maximum of universality? Only number one speaks of the universality. Was the maxim to act, to treat everybody is called humanity as end. Okay, and the next one was the maxim to act as a rational being. We call this one autonomy of action. And number 15, what is good for Kant? Is anything that is good, we ought to do good without condition. It's ought to be done. Okay, in virtue ethics, we emphasize what? Being of the person rather than doing or having. Aristotle's ethics is concerned with the fulfillment called arete, or this is called what? A well-being. Aristotle believes that moral values are acquired over time. Which of the following activate the acquisition of values? Practice, 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 virtuous acts until they become a habit. Virtue for Aristotle, prudence is the ability to make decisions according to any circumstances. Ancient Greek's word for virtue, arete, which means excellence in function. For ancient Greek philosophers, morals emphasize what? Being good or doing good. It's a being good person is better than doing right things. Number 7, virtue, morality is a way of life. Eudaimonia is happiness or well-being. It's the most basic aspect of virtue theory is that but people, who you are as a person defines your action. This is very important line. For Aristotle, virtues need learn, and moral education to virtue involves what? Using reward and punishment to promote virtue. Number 11, this is called moral character. It's an integrated trait of moral disposition, a repeated practice of good actions. One of this is moral, and we call this one okay, a repeated practice is habituation. Which one is the virtue of the intellect? Only prudence here. Which one is a moral virtue? This is only temperance. And lastly, what is virtue here defined as mean, in between two twos, not too good, not too little, not too many, not too little. All right, so this is easy way of reviewing. You have a multiple choice already. So what I need you to do is to master the mastery before you start. You can go back to the video because I will be posting this one after this. Now, regarding your last assignment, I would like you to focus on the extra credit, how to teach a child to be virtuous. And I would like you to look at this. Okay, this is the guide now. Will you do educating the children? Or do you educate children? Or will you ask the children to practice virtuous acts? Try to develop what is asked in one paragraph and what is asked in a different paragraph. Okay, the second paragraph on Aristotle. So this is Plato's model, this is Aristotle's model, like your discussion. Now answer the questions here. Do you adhere Plato or do you adhere Aristotle? If you are Aristotle, how will you change the attitude of the child in building up your what? Habituation or being good person? Okay, so I hope this orientation can help you. I have no word yet about the course evaluation. If I have a new one, then I will email you immediately before the end of the semester. I hope this helps in building and finding the answers for your journal ideas. And good luck. And in case you have issues with the assignments, just let me know. Bye-bye.